Good evening. Welcome to the Calvert County Planning Commission regular meeting of Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. This meeting was originally scheduled for April 15th, 2026 and was moved to today. We'll start with the determination of quorum. Commissioner Burry?
Here.
Commissioner Freeland?
Here.
Commissioner Gadway?
Here.
Commissioner Kernan?
Here.
Commissioner McQueen?
Here.
I'm Commissioner Toohey, and Commissioner Weems?
Here.
Thank you so much. We have a quorum, and we are now called to order. If you'd all please stand and join me for the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have the proposed summary of actions from March 18th.
Agenda.
Ooh, we have our proposed agenda first. I apologize. Would anybody like to make a
Motion to approve and adopt. Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Carries. And now we have the summary of actions for March 18th. We had two meetings that night, the Planning Commission public hearing.
Motion to approve and adopt March 18th, 2026 public hearing.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And also the regular meeting summary of actions.
Motion to approve and adopt the March 18th, 2026 Planning Commission regular meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, recognition.
Yes, thank you. Hello, my name is Ruth Davis Rogers. I'm the Planning Commission Administrator. This meeting will be conducted as a hybrid meeting, allowing for both virtual and in-person participation. This meeting is being recorded on both audio and video for record-keeping purposes. And if you're attending in person, please make sure you sign the attendance sheet by the door. If you are attending virtually or by phone, please keep yourself muted to ensure no interruptions for the evening. Individuals should call in advance if participating by telephone. You can call in at 1-872-216-2953 to the meeting ID 299-248-548-9644, and the passcode is capital P, capital X 2, lowercase GM 3, lowercase v, uppercase A as in aviator. Okay, so this evening we want to recognize the people attending this meeting. Representing the Calvert County Planning and Zoning Department, we have Jason Brinkley, the Director. We have Tamara Blake Wallace, the Deputy Director and Board of Appeals Administrator. Rachel O'Shea is here, the Deputy Director of Zoning. We have Christine Finnemore, the Principal Planner, who will be presenting this evening. Jay Cousineau, Planner 3, is attending virtually. And Becky Parkinson, the Planning Commission Clerk, is also here. The Legal Counsel for Calvert County, John Mattingly, is also present. And also we have the two Legislative Affairs Specialists attending and who will be giving a presentation, and that is Eric Valentine and Edward Williams III. Okay, so that brings us to major subdivisions. Item number 7, major subdivisions for final review and action. And she's actually going to be presenting one presentation, so that will cover, number 7. That will be applications for site plan review and action, as well as major subdivision applications for preliminary review and action. Chris, go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good
Can you hear me
evening.
okay? There it is. My name is Christine Finnemore. I'm a Principal Planner here with Calvert County Planning and Zoning. I'll be presenting the Conceptual Site Plan, CSBR 143260, as well as the Preliminary Subdivision Plan, SD 143478, for the project called Westside on Main. This project includes a Category 1 site plan and major subdivision, both of which require presentation to the Planning Commission as part of the review and approval process. The conceptual site plan, also known as a CSPR, was submitted in January of 2025. The preliminary subdivision plan was submitted in October of 2025. Agencies have reviewed the CSPR and subdivision plan for compliance with Calvert County Comprehensive Plan, the Calvert County Zoning Ordinance as amended, the Prince Frederick Master Plan and Zoning Ordinance as amended, as well as other county ordinances and regulations. The project was submitted prior to the adoption of the current Calvert County Zoning Ordinance in March of 2025. Therefore, it is subject to the zoning regulations and review process in place at the time of acceptance of the conceptual site plan. Attachments in your packages include the staff report, which includes all outstanding agency comments on review of the conceptual site plan, as well as the preliminary subdivision plan, the site plan application, the subdivision application, traffic impact analysis form. Let's see if I can do this. First time with the clicker. Is there a secret?
Yeah.
Can you just flip them, Tony?
Can we advance to slide 2? Oh, there we go. Here you see the location map. We're in Prince Frederick. The major roads are Maryland 24 and Maryland 231. You see those shown in the reddish color. Prince Frederick Town Center zoning district boundary is shown in the orange-yellow color. The subject property is outlined in yellow. The site is located on tax map 24, parcel 429 and 431 in Prince Frederick, with frontage on Main Street, also known as Maryland 765, just south of Duke Street. Next slide, please. Thank you. The next slide, when we get there, is an aerial photo. It's a 2023 aerial with the property outlined in yellow again. I'll give him a second. There we go. The Prince Frederick Town Center zoning district is again shown in the orange-yellow color. As you can see, all but one of the surrounding properties are developed with commercial type uses. There's an existing structure and business located on the property that is proposed to remain. Next slide, please. Here you see the Prince Frederick Town Center zoning sub-areas in color. The project is located in the Old Town sub-area on approximately 3.9 acres, parcels 429 and 431. Next slide, please. Thank you. The applicant's proposal is for a mixed-use infill redevelopment and subdivision of the site to include 24 residential townhome units, 2 commercial lots, one with the existing building I mentioned to remain, plus 1 new building, which would be roughly 2,100 square foot. Associated common areas including community open space, recreation areas. Access is proposed via private rights-of-way named Westside Crossing, which is off of Main Street, and a secondary connection via Warfield Way, which is connects to Oldfield Lane. Road names have been reviewed and approved by the Department of Public Safety and the Department of Planning and Zoning. Sidewalks are provided internally along both sides of private roads and along Main Street for pedestrian connectivity. Minimum parking requirements are met for the site, with 66 spaces required and 69 spaces being provided. There is a proposed shared parking approach between the residential overflow that is required and the commercial uses. This will require a shared parking and access agreement between the residential portion of the project and the commercial property owners. Recreational amenities and open space are provided in accordance with requirements for this size development found in the Prince Frederick Town Center zoning ordinance. These include community open space, mini park, and a multi-use field. A traffic impact analysis form was submitted to the Department of Public Works. A traffic study is required based on the total daily trips, and review of that study will be done by both Maryland State Highway Administration, as well as the Calvert County Department of Public Works. Next slide, please. Here you see the conceptual stormwater management plan. Stormwater management has been reviewed at a conceptual level with full design to occur and be reviewed at the detailed site plan stage. A Board of Appeals variance has been granted for impacts to wetland and stream buffers with required mitigation, which is in the form of planting, at a ratio of 2:1. Forest Conservation Act requirements are being met through on-site retention as well as a fee in lieu component. The project will connect to public water and sewer facilities. Slide 7, please. Thank you. This is the subdivision plan. There's a couple different views, one to make it all fit and the other to show a little of the adjacent properties. Density for the project, residential density, we're looking at 24 units proposed on 3.57 net acres, which is approximately 6.7 units per acre. This will require transfer development rights, which will be addressed prior to final plat approval, and final plat must be recorded prior to final site plan approval. Recreational amenities, as mentioned before, 1.2 acres of community open space is required for this number of units. A 5,000 square foot multi-use field along with a mini park are proposed to meet the recreational requirements. Overall, the proposed development demonstrates general compliance with applicable county regulations and aligns with the policy objectives in the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan and Zoning Ordinance. Outstanding technical details will be addressed at the detailed site plan and final plat stages. Staff recommends approval of conceptual site plan 143260 and subdivision plan 143478, preliminary subdivision plan for Westside on Main, subject to the conditions found in the staff report. The next steps that the Planning Commission may consider are approval with staff recommended conditions, approval with modifications to those conditions, of course deferral or denial, which would mean we'd have to come back here with a different looking project. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I do want to add that the applicant and their engineering consultant, as well as their surveyor, are present to field any questions of that are more appropriate for them.
Thank you, Christine. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone have a question or comment?
Yes, one question. So under the old procedures for site plans that we're working on for this particular site plan, will the Planning Commission have a chance to review the detailed site plan and final plat and judge at that time whether the development is in full compliance with adequate public facilities ordinance and comprehensive plan?
It's a great question. Thank you, Commissioner Burry. The old process is where the conceptual site plan, which is step 1, is reviewed by the Planning Commission. And then the detailed site plan is the technical level review that is finished by staff. You will be able to see the final plat, and because you have to certify the final plat. And the final plat, oh my goodness. The final plat cannot be certified until things such as adequate public facilities, stormwater management, forest conservation, all of those things are approvable at a staff level. Does that answer your question?
My concern is that right now we don't have a traffic impact study to review. And given the number of failing intersections within Prince Frederick, In my mind, there is an open question about whether the traffic generated by this development will make some of the existing failing sections, intersections worse. So that raises the issue about whether this development will be within compliance with the adequate public facilities ordinance. So I'd like to get assurances that the Planning Commission will be able to make a determination about APFO compliance during the final plat review process.
The plat certification step would be at a point where staff is able to approve the site plan. And I say staff, but it's mainly the Department of Public Works that looks at the traffic study in conjunction with State Highway Administration in this case. And we're not going to be able to send you a plat for certification if they haven't met the requirements of the adequate public facilities ordinance.
Right. My understanding, though, is that the Planning Commission has a responsibility of ourselves to do a final review about adequate public facility ordinance compliance. And if we don't have a finished traffic impact study, we can't actually make that review.
The adequate public facilities ordinance, which is Chapter 3 in the county code, includes a section where it says certification of adequate public facilities. That is actually the Planning Commission administrator who makes that certification, and it's with the final plat and final site plan step. So at that point, if the PCA cannot certify for adequate public facilities, and that includes everything, not just roads,
Sure.
then of course the final plat's not going to come before the Planning Commission for certification. And that's certification by the Planning Commission secretary, but of course we present the plat certification for final approval before it's recorded.
Chris, but the Planning Commission can ask to see it before certification during DSDP if they wish. That
Thank
would
you,
be
ma'am.
at their request.
Okay.
Either the final site plan or the traffic study or both.
Or both.
Okay. So let's say that we go ahead and ask to see the traffic impact study when it is finished. At that point, if we look at the traffic impact study and it says that failing intersections are actually made worse, then does the Planning Commission have the authority to turn the development down at that point?
Mr. Mattingly, please.
Yes, you actually have the authority to not approve at any time up to final.
Okay.
Final certification.
Okay, that's
But
that's my question.
There's a final certification that the PCA will bring to you.
Okay.
So your authority is all the way up to that date.
Okay. And if the traffic study comes back good, then at least for traffic, then that won't be an issue. But so what I'd like to do is make a motion requesting that once the traffic impact study is done for Westfield on Main, that it be submitted to the Planning Commission for review.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye?
Aye. Were there any against? Carries. Thank you.
I do have a
Thanks.
question,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Tui. Would you want to see the review comments from both State Highway and Department of Public Works?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, please.
Okay, thank you.
And the traffic study will be currently dated, hopefully. Not something that's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, I'm hoping.
It would not meet the minimum requirements to be
Right.
reviewed by staff.
Understood.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yes, please. This is in the Old Town District. What is the history of the density in Old Town District as far as, and I'm asking a little bit off the cuff, not asking for exact numbers maybe, but At some point, maybe 20, at some point, maybe 14, at some point, maybe 4, and any numbers in between. Would you have any rough recollection on that?
I don't have the slide clicker, but if we can go to the slide that shows the town center zoning. So I would not be able to answer the question of density numbers. Okay, thank you. Off the top of my head, but I can tell you that there is a mix of single-family residential, multifamily residential, and I believe duplexes within close proximity to the site.
Understood. Is I recall at some point that Old Town District was separate from Town Center as far as density goes, and I don't remember the dates that those changed. And I understand that this was submitted in January of 2025. I'm going to pause there for a second. A moment ago, Commissioner Burry asked about the adequate public facilities, and do you recall when that rule got changed to where it was staff that did it versus Planning Commission looking at it? Was that fairly recently? Because we used to...
The adequate public facilities prior to November 2022 was only for roads and schools.
Mm-hmm.
In November 2022, the current Chapter 3, as you see it, was adopted, and in 2023 it was applicable for any projects. But it was always a staff level review.
Okay, because
The certification for schools and roads occurred the same way, more or less, at the final plat certification step.
Okay. All right. So going back to the other one, the other question I had, do you recall when the density was dropped in in Town Center, which would include the Old Town District? I believe you said it was March of 25.
In May of 2022, as of May 2022, the Prince Frederick zoning ordinance, which is what applies for this project subdivision plan, the density was allowed in no case. It reads, in no case may the number of dwelling units per gross acre exceed 14.
So in May of 22, it was 14.
Yes, sir.
And what is it currently? I believe 4, right?
4 across the board, but that would not apply to this project.
Well, I understand, but when was that motion made to drop it to 4?
So that was Jason Brinkley, Director. This is a much better mic than it was the day before.
Yes, it is.
Jeez. Jason Brinkley, Director of Planning and Zoning. So that change came with the updated of comprehensive zoning ordinance. So that took effect March 1st of last year of 2025. I believe this project was submitted in January.
Early 2025.
So it would
Right.
apply under the old, but that change was made in March.
Right.
And
The change was finalized in March, correct?
Correct. And then this project was already submitted at that time. So it's,
Right.
I don't know if we have many more that are still in the pipeline after this. We were discussing earlier, I think this may be the last project still
Right.
under the old one. She's going to cut me
Oh.
off and tell me I'm
One
wrong.
more coming.
No, that's one, not.
Okay.
To finish answering that question, there is one conceptual site plan after this one that falls under the old process. It is commercial.
Okay. It appears to me that this project was rushed in after the motion was made to drop the density, but prior to it actually being voted on and being able to put into effect. That's one of the reasons why I have quite a bit of pause on it. Having 24 units shoehorned into a property right on Main Street is going to redefine the visual appearances of Main Street, let alone the traffic, let alone everything else associated with it. I have pause on it based just on that. I'm assuming these are probably going to be 2 to 3 story townhouses. The other properties around there, it's just going to fundamentally change the way Main Street looks, drives, walks, everything.
I would honestly have to defer to the consultant as to when the project feasibility started. We didn't, at the county level, see it until very early 2025. I will say that the Main Street frontage is the commercial component. And I say commercial, but it's non-residential. It's more business, personal services.
But they're going to have 40-plus cars a day going in and out past that commercial. So it is from either of the properties next to it that have been looking at woods for the last however 100 years that they've been there, some of them shorter. They've been looking at woods, now they're going to be looking at the back of townhouses. The visual appearance is going to change dramatically. You take a look behind Goodyear or behind the King Building where Radio Shack used to be. Prince Frederick has been redefined visually as well as additional traffic. Now it's going to come to Main Street. And the old town nature of Main Street, in my opinion, is going to be dramatically changed. Prior to Mr. Burry making his motion, I was going to make a motion to defer this until a traffic study could be put in place. And you know what, just see where that goes, I'll make that motion. I'd like to make a motion that we defer this until we have the opportunity to see a traffic study and see the impact of what it's really going to do in downtown on Main Street.
That's a motion, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have a discussion?
Yeah, and it's just a technical one. So what would a deferment mean in terms of staff's ability to continue working on this project with additional studies or staff work, really?
I think it would depend on what the definition of defer is.
Yeah.
And so if there's some clarification y'all would like to make, if you would rather treat this as under the new process, so the new process, you get to see it at detailed site plan, which is you're going to see much more information. You're going to see your traffic studies. You're going to see more of the comments from other than just stormwater management.
Right.
So that may be, hey, we want to see it again at detailed, which you would still have the right to approve, not approve, whatever. Or if you would like to just see this traffic study, that's fine. All we would ask for is just clarification.
My point on making the motion was if this project is going to fail a traffic study, I'd rather have it fail now and save a whole lot of people more time and money and aggravation and heartache than going through 6 months to a year from now or a year and a half from now when it comes back up and says, oh yeah, here's the traffic study, let's go ahead and get the final plot plan. See, now you got me doing it. Put in place. I think it would save a lot of. Let's see the traffic study. If it's going to fail, put a stop on it. It's going to fail, and we can come back and revisit it at some point in the future. But waiting until the last minute, a lot of more people are going to have a lot of more hours involved in this, and a lot of everything else, time, effort, and energy, and that might be avoided. That's why I kind of thought that if we could defer this and any further progress on it until after a traffic study and being able to see the impacts, that's kind of where I was going with that. Does that answer your question, Mr. Brinkley?
I believe it does for us. I think you do have the applicant here if you would like to hear from them.
Please.
For what it's worth, I don't mean to cut anybody off, sorry. This is Plan 4. Staff has reviewed 4 conceptual site plans already. Mm-hmm. And the subdivision is actually at step 2, which hasn't changed. Conceptual subdivision plan was submitted and staff reviewed that. You are looking at the preliminary plan. I believe it's Plan 2. So staff has reviewed these plans already and gotten to a point where the plans are presentable to the Planning Commission.
Understood.
Hi.
Sir?
Good evening. David Weigel, Dugan, McKissick, and Longmore on behalf of the applicant. I would respectfully submit that the commission doesn't have the authority to insist on the traffic study. At this time, all that was required and is required under the site development plan checklist, and looking at item 11, is the traffic impact analysis requirements form. That was submitted as part of the application. It's in the packet of information that was attached with the agenda, and DPW deferred that study until the final site plan stage. We deferred, DPW is the subject matter expert here. We deferred to them, and I think that subject matter expert is entitled to some deference here. So respectfully, I think that needs to occur at the final site plan development stage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mattingly?
I respectfully disagree. You very easily could just deny the project right here. If you're saying that you cannot approve it, but for concerns that can only be ameliorated through a traffic study, that's within your discretion.
Thank you.
So if we take one council's opinion, we cannot defer it, but if we take another council's opinion, we can just deny it overall. Or to
That
that
was kind
point.
of that was kind of my
Right.
common sense approach is, well, of course you can defer it because you're well within your rights to just deny it outright. So if you can't approve it because you have this question mark in your mind, deferral seems like the common sense way to not deny it and to get the information that you need to approve it, even at this stage.
I mean, I like very much to deny it, but I'm not going to go there. I just as soon defer it until we can get the information that we would like to see. So my motion stands, and I appreciate it.
Can you do me a favor and repeat the motion, please?
On the face of the motion is to defer any action on this until we've had the opportunity to see an accurate current traffic study.
And we have a second.
A second, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Comment? Nope. Okay. All those in favor of deferral?
Aye.
Are there any against, aside from myself? Okay, carry 6-1.
And similar question as to Mr. Burry's, you would want to see the agency review comments with the traffic study?
Yes.
Please.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Christine, I have a question.
Oh, yes, sir.
Is the Board of Appeals provided a conceptual site plan in their determination on granting a variance?
They are. With the referral process, you have to include a plan with what you're referring to the Board of Appeals. In this case, it was a variance for impacts to wetland buffer. And in the town of Prince Frederick Town Center ordinance, you are able to do that, but you have to mitigate. And you have to go to Board of Appeals for the variance. It's not administrative.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Christine, I have also a question. Third bullet point under key aspects of a general variance. Hardship must relate to the property itself, not to the personal circumstances of the owner, e.g. wanting a larger garage. What would have to take place on this project to keep them from having to go into the buffer?
Forgive me, the environmental reviewer was not able to be here tonight. She was here the other night, so I'm winging this, but a different design.
I mean, this could just be shortened up by 2 townhouses, or is it, that's what I'm trying to understand.
And my apologies, I didn't include the Board of Appeals order in the package. I don't know that it was finalized yet, but that would give all of the information as to their decision. That could certainly be provided to the Planning Commission, and I would include it in the package if we're looking at detailed site plan presentation.
That would be nice if we could get that.
Their orders are quite lengthy, and I don't want to fumble through trying to explain their decision. I would rather provide the Planning Commission with that document because it gives a very thorough explanation of what's required, what was requested in their decision, and what it's based off of.
Okay. Yeah, my biggest concern is just that general area with all of that steep slopes and the ravines all down through Prince Frederick there. I mean, we've got, across the street, we've got the one stormwater management pond that's been blown out for 2 years now in that same area where all that water's running down through that bottom over on the other side of the street. So just that whole area concerns me through there.
So we can get the Board of Appeals order to you.
Yeah,
It is
absolutely.
Okay.
Question for council.
Yes, sir.
I believe that we were still on 7A
That is
on the
correct.
agenda.
Yes, sir.
By that motion carrying, does that eliminate us going into 8A?
It
or
does not.
It does not. So we will still be looking at 8A?
8A. I mean, we can obviously abbreviate the presentation on 8A. I'm assuming the same
Right.
issue stands.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I just need 8A to be introduced and called, since it is on the agenda. That's all.
Right. My intent was to have it lumped in, but I did not put it in my motion.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
The problem is one is for site plan, the other one is for subdivision.
Yes. Yes, so I can call that again. Number 8 is major subdivision applications for preliminary review and action.
Do I need to wait till introduction, or can I make a motion now?
You
Make
can
a
make a
motion.
motion now.
All right. To be in concurrence with the previous motion on 7A, I'd like to make a motion that we defer 8A, the preliminary subdivision plan 143478, until the traffic study can be submitted to this board.
And all agency comments,
Yes, and all agency comments,
Thank you, sir.
including Board of Appeals, please.
including water and
Board of Appeals.
Board of Appeals. Thank you.
Thank you. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And we have one nay for myself, so it's 6-1. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
council.
Thank you, Christine.
All right, so moving right along, we have number 9, long-range planning, none. And number 10, items for discussion and/or action. The first thing we have, a proposed text amendment number 2623, data center conditions by Rachel O'Shea.
No, you can put it up.
Good evening, Planning Commission members.
Good evening.
Rachel O'Shea, Deputy Director of Zoning. I'm going to go ahead and read the memo for you all. Subject, proposed text amendment number 26-23, data center conditions, background. A comprehensive rewrite and update of the Calvert County zoning ordinance was adopted and became effective March 1st, 2025, with additional text amendments adopted September 30th, 2025. Text amendments are now being proposed to address recent changes to state law and to address outstanding issues not addressed with the recent Calvert County zoning ordinance update. Discussion. At the Board of County Commissioner regular January 28th, 2026 meeting, staff was directed to draft additional conditions for data centers as a text amendment. Staff presented a draft text amendment on February 10th and was directed by the BOCC to come back with additional options for further discussion. Staff returned to the BOCC to present options for consideration on March 10th, 2026, and was directed to request Planning Commission feedback. Fiscal impact none. Conclusion recommendation. The BOCC has requested feedback from the Planning Commission regarding the proposed data center conditions. At a PC work session on March 18th, 2026, staff recommended the Planning Commission review and discuss the proposed text amendment and submit comments via email by April 2nd. The Planning Commission agreed to proceed with this approach. Staff has compiled the submitted comments, which are attached to the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission's consideration. Staff requests the PC review, discuss, and provide direction on which comments should be forwarded to the BOCC. I would like to add that the Planning Commission's recommendations and comments will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners in a future work session in addition to what is already being proposed as part of text amendment number 26-23. And this will also include the most recent direction staff received from the BOCC on April 7th, which includes the removal of I-1 as a special exception for data centers. So it will only be conditionally permitted in the I-2 as currently proposed in the text amendment. So with that, I will open it up to Planning Commission. With your pleasure, we can walk through the comments one by one if you'd like, or if you'd just like to discuss and then.
Just for clarification, this is basically a work session, for lack of a better term. There's no action on us at the end of this. Is that correct?
Well, we would like direction from the Planning Commission on what recommendations and or comments that you guys previously submitted to staff that you would like forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners for discussion.
Right.
So we do would like to have a motion on that, yes.
Okay. The first comment out was mine that originally it was 200 feet setback with a 400 foot to a residential setback is what was originally proposed in the text amendment that was presented to us, the draft text amendment, we'll call it. I'd like to call for a minimum, or for a 1,200 foot setback. I can gladly go higher if anybody else wants to go higher, and a minimum of a 400 foot vegetative buffer. I would like to add on that I did not include in my comments that a 45 dBA at the property line shall not be exceeded. And I've read the others and I like them too. Thanks.
Gentlemen, Commissioner? Commissioner Burke?
Yeah, I certainly support the 1,200 foot setback. On the issue of noise, I had submitted a lengthy comment, and since that time, some other citizens have also submitted further information on noise. So I'd like to somewhat amend my suggestion for a noise ordinance. What's clear is that the current county noise ordinance does not really respond to data center noise well. The industrial noise limits right now in the county ordinance are 75 dB day and night, 70 dB for total noise, and that's just entirely too high. And so what Commissioner Gadway suggests as 45 dBA as residential property lines during the night, 55 in the day might be considered. The big issue is low frequency tonal noise, and that's low frequency defined below 300 hertz. And we would recommend that emissions be limited to 40, that's 40 dBc, which is a different way of measuring decibels that treats low frequency noise better. And it's important that those low frequency noise limits be measured with a special much more precise sound meter that can that has the resolution to look at very narrow frequency ranges rather than very broad ones. It's important that these noise limits that a certified acoustic engineer take ambient noise readings before construction starts, so we know the environment before construction even happened, and then after the site is in operational, so we can see just how much noise the site is actually contributing above ambient. So with those criterion, I would like to ask the staff to draft text amendment language to be considered.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Freeland?
Oh, my comments are number 3 on the list, and doing additional research and learning pretty quickly what I didn't know about data centers. I am suggesting that an earthen berm be included between the property boundary and adjoining properties that reaches a maximum of 10 foot beyond the height of the data center building. I also would like to see us include the written comment we've received from the public up until today or this evening, and forward that to the commissioners along with our comments. One last thing, and I'm afraid that I'm in a position that I don't know what I don't know. And I do believe that it would be in the commissioner's best interest, the county's best interest, to look at some sort of a commissioning agent in the development of the plans and the build out of a facility of this type.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
Commissioner McQueen?
since we can't measure the sound until it's built, it'd be a little late for some things. So can we figure out how to take professional analysis and go out to something that has been built with some of the structure that we're talking about and do a sound environment check there prior to moving on? Because we don't know. I mean, so the best way to find out is go find a center, do the testing, and prove or not prove whether this works or doesn't work for the low sound. So if the berm's there, does the berm help or does it not help? There's a lot of questions that we would have to answer, so I suggest testing be done.
Boy,
So
to be fair, the
you're
kind
calling
of-
for testing on an existing facility?
Testing on an existing facility,
Yeah.
and it can be within the last year built, running, something newer. And that way we can actually find out and get some answers.
Well, the problem, I think, is that the noise generated is so dependent on the specific interior design and the equipment used that it's really almost peculiar to the individual facility. So trying to find a facility that
would be exactly like
is
that one.
similar
Yeah,
in the absence of specific facility design for this one would be tough. Yeah, I'm sympathetic. I just don't know that can be done.
We can ask.
I got a funny feeling that there's engineers out there that if we say that it's going to be 40 dB at 1,200 feet, you know, I'm pretty sure that there's scientists. I'm not a scientist. We had 7 or scientists and or highly educated people in the environment here last week. They had as many questions, if not more, than we did.
they did.
Yeah.
I believe that if we establish, or if the county establishes restrictions and criteria, that if somebody wants to come in here and do it bad enough, they're going to have an engineer design it to where it's going to fit the criteria.
True, yeah.
And with that being said, I would like to, this is not about the text amendment here, but it's about the entire process. When this text amendment first came out, the entire county has been inundated with information. The Board of County Commissioners scientific community that they approved to be on the Environmental Commission made recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. If the commissioners would have taken that recommendation, we wouldn't even be talking about this text amendment right now. We'd be waiting on a series of text amendments to be able to understand the entire processes, everything in one lump sum. So I wanted to say no to anything on this text amendment, but if we say no to it, then it's going to allow carte blanche. So I'm not sure how we can effectively, in a reasonable time, get the right stuff in place. We just saw earlier on one of the previous agenda items in front of us, Board of County Commissioners made a motion to put something in place. Someone came in, and this is my impression, I'm not saying this is fact, I want to clarify that someone came in, put in a building permit for high density prior to the vote lowering that high density down from 14 to 4. I don't want to see that happen here. So I don't know what we can do. I'm droning on at this point, and I apologize, but I don't know what else we can do.
It's a good drone, though. Go continue. Mr. Brinkley, Mr. Magley, are we up against a time constraint at all?
No. There
Okay.
is no time constraint. These are your, as far as this step, this is a request from the BOCC to get your comments.
Right.
They want to consider it. There really isn't it's not like in the land use article, there's
Mhm.
a procedure for gathering the comments from the planning commission. This is just the BOCC reaching out saying, hey, we want to hear
From
from
you
you're the
all.
experts on what is
Mhm.
consistency with the comprehensive plan. We want to hear from you.
I hope what you're hearing and gathering is that we don't know what we don't know, and we need more information. Yeah.
Well, it's in our title as the Planning Commission. We need a plan. We need to know what they intend to build so that we know how to get it designed to fit what
That
we're
would
trying to achieve.
That would be helpful. Yeah.
The bad part is I don't want, I almost feel like calling every single morning to the Planning Commission. I'm not doing that, by the way, to say, did a data center submit a plan yesterday? Did they submit a permit yesterday? Because once they submit a permit, then we're going to be right back here in 2 years, and I'm not asking for comment on this. Call it a hyperbole if need be. We'll be right back here in 2 years having a discussion. Oh, well, that one was grandfathered in prior to the rules being put in place. So we can't enforce it on that one. We can enforce it on future ones, but not on that one. I don't want to be there. Not with something this big.
So this raises the whole issue of grandfathering, and my understanding is that even if we are in the process of working on text amendments that have not yet been officially approved, and a data center site plan is submitted, that the grandfathering does not necessarily have to take place until construction actually begins. Is that right?
That is correct. I just do want to point out, though, that data centers are currently allowed in at least one zone by right and one permissibly.
I thought in heavy industrial it's still conditional, correct?
Well, yes. I mean, there are criteria they have to meet.
Right, including text amendments, which we haven't yet passed.
Well,
Right.
Well, we can't. It's not contingent on text amendments that haven't been passed yet because they're not.
Right.
They're not there yet.
Yeah, right, yeah, okay.
But Mr. Burry, to elaborate a little bit further, as Mr. Mattingly pointed out, Maryland is a late vesting state when it comes to something like this. So unless there is actually something in the ground, like pilings or something, construction happening, you could still be required to be subject to any changes in the regulations that happen up until that point.
Okay.
Now, I know that is the exact opposite of the previous discussion that we had regarding the townhomes. However, at what point they become vested is up to the Board of County Commissioners whenever they adopt, whether they adopt the comprehensive rezoning, whether they adopt these text amendments. They can say what the grandfathering language is at that time, and it's all in the adopting ordinance for that particular thing. And historically, Calvert County has said, if you have a application submitted, we're going to grandfather that. That is my understanding historically what has happened, but that is not what is required by state law. So
Okay.
the Board of County Commissioners could choose to late vest this, so to speak, and apply these conditions.
Yeah.
Because I think I said before, I think I said it last week, and I know I said it in the Board of County Commissioners meeting. Obviously, we don't have anything officially filed with Planning and
Right.
Zoning. We don't have anything to review. We know they filed some stuff with the Maryland MDE. But if they filed something tomorrow, and I'm not saying they're going to, but I'm just saying hypothetically, if they filed something tomorrow, they have to go through the three-step process that was similar to the previous discussion.
Sure.
They've got to come to Planning Commission. They've got to hold a town hall or town meeting. You're looking at least a 6-month process. As y'all saw, the plan right before this was a year in the making to get to now. So that development process takes some time. So there is some time to put in place additional amendments to the zoning ordinance that they would be subject to.
To that point, would it be appropriate for us as a planning commission, assuming everybody here agrees, to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners that grandfathering occur only when construction begins?
You can absolutely make that recommendation.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'd like to go ahead and move that as a planning commission statement to the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for data centers, grandfathering only occurs when construction begins.
Agreed.
Is that a second? Is that a motion?
It's a part of his comments, so
Yeah, so that was my motion, so looking
you're
for a
making
second.
a motion, okay.
Okay.
And the rest of the comments that we've all made, are they included as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Then I will second that motion.
Okay.
Does that include the public?
Yeah, everything
Comment
that you
we
said as well,
received?
yes.
And testing?
And
testing.
all of our comments.
All of our
All of our
comments.
comments, thank you. Are
And
we
this
good,
is
Mr.
simply a recommendation to the BOCC.
To the BEC, right.
For grandfathering, correct?
Correct.
Right,
For
yeah.
all of it. It's my
To
understanding.
include grandfather, yes.
That's all you have the authority to do.
Right.
Right, yeah. It's
Okay.
not legally binding.
No,
Right.
no.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any against? We have no against. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Rachel.
Oh,
Thank you, Rachel.
whoops, one more. So,
Sure.
I had a couple of other text amendment to propose, and just for discussion. One is to restrict data center generator testing to weekdays between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Further mitigates possibility of public being annoyed by noise. A second proposal is to require the data center companies to prepare a construction traffic management plan. Just recalling what happened with the LNG plant with all the truck noise. So have some idea of exactly what truck volumes are going to occur at what times of day and during the week. So that the public is aware of that, and if that's something that we need to push back on in terms of site approval, or if the county commissioners do, then that plan is in hand. Also recommend that the data center company have a site decommissioning plan. We don't want, as a company, to be stuck with empty buildings if data companies move out in the future.
Were these comments a part of your original comments? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. I raised them informally at the previous meeting.
All right.
So what I'm doing now is laying them out for potential planning commission consideration to forward to the county commissioners.
Could I ask for a little clearance on
Yeah.
the decommissioning?
Yeah.
At one time, you had recommended a bond for decommissioning.
Yeah, that's right.
American corporations are notorious for disappearing when it's time to decommission something.
Right.
bonds stay in place.
Right, so the bond amount would be determined from an estimate by a demolition engineer based on what is known about the site plan. And then the amount of that bond would be redetermined after every 5 years based on inflation.
Okay, thank you.
One other issue that I'd like to bring up, not for any kind of text amendment, but there is an easement going through the AWS potential property for the old Baltimore and Drum Point Railroad. It's an easement the county has had for a long time with the view towards eventually being able to fund some sort of a hiking and biking trail. This is an ideal opportunity to ask AWS through a community benefits agreement to fund such a trail going through at least the easement that goes across that site. So just something to consider for future discussion.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bagley, you happy over there?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm
okay.
He's overjoyed. That's good. That's good.
I'm not seeing it from my angle, frankly, sir.
So if I can make a motion then
Certainly,
to
sir.
forward to the county commissioners recommendation for staff to prepare a text amendment language on restricting data center generator testing between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. weekdays, on requiring a construction traffic management plan from data center companies, and a site decommissioning plan.
Second.
We have a first and we have a motion and a second. We have a question.
Is the bond included in the
Yes,
decommissioning?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Who made that second?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Discussion?
Certainly, sir.
Instead of this being a separate text amendment, could it not be just included with
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
what we've just done?
Yeah, yeah.
That would be doable, yes. We can do it either way, but would like to keep it all together if possible.
Is that acceptable, Mr.
Yes,
Bailey?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would read it that way.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful.
Call for a
Commissioner
question.
Queen?
So we never finished testing. So
Oh.
does that include the testing process that can be done as part of this that we send back to them for the sound?
Oh, for the noise?
Commissioner Freeland actually just called the question.
Okay. We have to vote on that, and then you can make we'll have to make a separate motion for that. All those in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That carries. 7?
So, yeah, I'd like
Okay.
to,
Now, Commissioner McQueen.
like to make a motion that the county hire or find a certified testing sound company that will go out and do testing for us and bring back the information we need so we can work within our own text amendments.
Just for clarification, those comments was included in your previous motion, so they will be,
They will be.
yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay, great. So we are. Thank you. Wonderful.
We're good. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. If you're happy, I'm happy. Okay. Gentlemen, we all set?
I think we're good.
All right. Rachel, thank you so
much.
much. We appreciate all your help tonight.
Actually, I did have one quick question. Was the community benefits agreement also included in that for the hiking trail?
No, I offered that just as something for people to think about.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Another item for discussion is just a reminder, or just to let you know, that next month we'll have our annual meeting. That will be May, and our meeting will be on May 20th. At the annual meeting, we'll discuss what the Planning Department and Planning Commission has reviewed and approved for the past year, and we'll also review the bylaws and rules of procedure. Okay. Going to item number 11, items of interest. We have the legislative session, and here we have Eric Valentine and Edward Williams presenting.
Commissioners, before we begin, at the beginning of the legislative session, our office, the county attorney's office, was unfortunately and still is understaffed. And this year we had approximately 2,700 bills introduced in the Maryland General Assembly. So these gentlemen right here, Eddie Williams and Eric Valentine, did an outstanding job tracking all that legislation for the county government this year. So without further ado, I introduce our legislative affairs specialists, Eric Valentine and Eddie Williams.
Cool.
And
Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome.
Welcome.
To advance your slides on the keyboard there, if you use the right and left arrow.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
So you should have in front of you a memo. On that memo are the bills that were passed in the 2026 legislation cycle that affect the Planning Commission and land use here in Calvert County. There's only a select few bills. I will get into why in a second, and it may be a good importance. So each bill in this memo is placed into overall categories. These categories consist of comprehensive plans, critical area zones, heritage zones, infrastructure, permanent and zoning. Under each bill title will be a brief description of what the bill aims to do, along with the impact on the Planning Commission, especially regarding land use in Calvert County. During this legislation cycle, planning and zoning issues moved from Environment and Transportation to the Economic Matters Committee in Annapolis. When Eric and I visited Annapolis, this is why there was only a select few that were passed this year, we got insight that the Maryland General Assembly and the upcoming sessions will be focusing more on, threatening more local zoning laws. So it may be a good idea to stay on top of any bills that may come up in the next session, so nothing catches you guys by surprise. At the end of the presentation, we will gladly take any questions, and now I'll pass it on to Eric for the comprehensive plans bills.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. Great to be with you. And thank you to all the members of the public for attending Eddie and I's public introduction. So no pressure, no pressure. Let's get started with comprehensive plans. So we've got two bills here for you. They're mostly procedural, starting with House Bill 240. This has got to do with information sharing. And when it comes to updates to the comprehensive plan, the Maryland Department of Planning would like to know that we're going to be making some updates to a comprehensive plan. And in turn, will provide relevant materials regarding best practices and updates to state statutes that would be relevant. A similarly procedural bill, we have House Bill 243, and this is aligning state law with some of the changes that we saw in 2025 in terms of moving from a visions framework to a principles framework when it comes to comprehensive plans. And I will note that this bill does not require any premature edits to the plan to conform with the law. Moving on to critical areas, we've got House Bill. These were both introduced by the Critical Area Commission, by the way. House Bill 247 is talking about variances. This is when you're looking to build a deck or a shed or a pool within the critical area, and you must be able to demonstrate that these features cannot be built outside of the critical area for them to be approved. House Bill 258, lots of semantics here. When it comes to upzoning from resource conservation to limited development or limited to intense development, you must be in an adjacent area. The legislature looked at moving towards adjoining and contiguous because there was no definition of what adjacent means in state law. And then they decided they don't have a definition for that either and moved back to adjacent and provided a definition that is listed in your memo. This time we'll move to heritage areas.
So the two heritage area bills are House Bill 238 and House Bill 654. These bills more impact the MHAA, or the Maryland Heritage Areas Authority, more so than the procedural of the local planning commissions. House Bill 238 deals with internal, procedural, and administrative duties of the MHAA. House Bill 654, again, changes more internal focuses such as fundamental funding and finance procedures of the MHAA. But there also could be a change in how heritage area grants are awarded to areas. So again, not much impact on the procedures of the Planning Commission, but something to keep an eye on so nothing sneaks up on you guys regarding heritage areas. Moving on to the next section is the infrastructure bills. House Bill 1071, that it has to do with stormwater management for agritourism areas. So this bill gives MDE the directions to set statewide standards for how stormwater is managed and a review process. So this bill will create state level standards that have to be met by the Planning Commission. If not, there could be legal issues involved. Along with that, local government groups will have to improve the review process on stormwater management plans, which they can ask the local soil conservation districts for help with. This bill creates more administration duties, more so than any changes to land use, zoning, or permanent procedures.
Question on this. So the county right now is looking at adopting more strict stormwater management standards because of long-term climate change. There is nothing in this bill that prevents the county from having stricter standards than the state does, correct?
Correct. You can't have, the county can't have stricter standards.
Okay, thanks.
And so we'll move on to House Bill 1504. Hopefully it's not too unfamiliar to you all, as it did pass in 2025 before being vetoed by the governor due to some concerns from the State Highway Administration. The Great Ann Healy Act came back in 2026, addressing those concerns with some off-session deliberation. This bill is looking at complete streets, building sidewalks and bicycle pathways. It has passed once again. Now we'll move into permitting.
So House Bill 870 is a permit application for new buildings, or also known as the Large Buildings for Tomorrow Act. So this bill requires the Department of Labor to adopt new energy conservation requirements on large buildings. Large buildings consist of anything over 35,000 square feet. However, buildings such as schools, agricultural buildings, and historic buildings are exempt from these new regulations. If large grocery stores, and an important one, the hot topic of this legislation cycle, data center construction will be heavily impacted by this. Obviously, data centers for the most part are 35,000 square feet and more, and they deal and use energy at high levels and distribute energy at high levels. If a data center does not meet the qualifications that are listed, or the regulations that are listed in this bill, they would have to update their cooling and heating system and how power distribution is efficiently handled. Coordination with the state and MDE also means that projects will become state visible quicker. So everything has to also be in line. Regarding this, that the permit notification actually begins this year in July 1st, 2026, and the Planning Commission or the county will have 10 days to report that to the MDE for the review process, and then the new energy standards start on October 1st, 2028.
All right, now...
Gentlemen, I have one question on that one. I'm a little confused about historic buildings. Are we doing construction of historic buildings, or...?
So this bill won't, by kind of historic buildings, it means buildings that are already built. So any buildings that are already built, or any large buildings that are already built won't have to update to these new standards. They can stay with the permit that they already have.
Only for future construction?
Only for future construction.
Okay, thank you so much.
So I'm trying to understand the October 1st, 2028 date. So if data centers are constructed in Calvert before that date, they do not have to meet these standards. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
So, but to say, it's not so much the construction as it is probably the permit. So a permit for the data center has to be submitted before July 1st, 2026. If it's submitted after, it probably will have to be held to these standards.
Okay, and do we know what these standards are?
It's not off the top of my head. I do not.
The standards have been established, though, right? And
I'm actually not quite sure.
Okay,
But
yeah.
say I can't remember if it was established in the actual bills or not.
yeah.
But we will be happy to get back to you.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, you know, once we are confronted with a site plan from any of the data center companies, that's going to be very pertinent.
Actually, sorry, I was reading
Yeah.
the wrong thing on my own paper. So the requirements must align with the BEEP standards. I don't know if you're familiar with that, the BEPS.
Yeah, I've heard of them, yeah. Okay.
All right. Now we'll look at a few more bills with permitting. And if you turned out the legislature thus far, this is your tune-in alert. There should be flashing lights and sounding sirens for these two bills. Two big topics in the General Assembly this year: housing affordability and energy affordability. You might have heard of the Silver Starter Bill. That was part of the governor's package, and it did not pass. You might expect it to come back next year. The Housing Certainty Act, however, House Bill 548, did pass. As Mr. Brinkley mentioned earlier, Maryland is a late vesting state. This bill says that when it comes to housing, Maryland is now to be considered an early vesting state. Additionally, impact fees here in Calvert County, we collect them in three parts, the first being at the beginning of permit issuance. Now we may not collect those fees except as a precondition to conducting final inspection. If you were to poll local leaders around the state, this might be one of the least savory outcomes of this bill and the session overall, as those impact fees are important to infrastructure upgrades that are part of new homes coming online. And then we've got House Bill 1532, the Relief Act. It's over 200 pages. This is a massive bill. But what it might be of most importance to the Planning Commission is a study to be completed by the Power Plant Research Program to streamline energy zoning and permitting. Currently, we don't really have that authority when it comes to large generation sites, but it's a bellwether of what you might expect to come in terms of state zoning. And speaking of zoning, what do you got, Eddie?
Okay, so Senate Bill 807 deals with Class 8 farm license. This requires the holder of a Class 8 license to engage in some sort of agritourism activity. This could be anything from festivals, banquets, playing music, anything for the public. It also changes the standards of food services, and the bill will provide an exception that would give these licenses the right to serve alcohol regardless of local zoning laws. However, the local planning commission will still have local control over the land use and the zoning. However, the counties are now more limited on how to use zoning laws to restrict agritourism activities on these Class 8 farms. The commission and county can still strongly control events such as noise, traffic, parking, and manage the impacts. They are just more. The planning commission is just more restricted on actually blocking events from happening now.
All right, and before I get into our final two bills, I wanted to make one more point about House Bill 548. That's the Housing Certainty Act. If there's other industries, if home builders are saying that we really like being this early vesting thing, don't be surprised when other industries are coming and asking for these accommodations from the state legislature. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, our final two bills, bringing it all home, House Bill 894, transit-oriented development. That's not something that we really see a lot of here, but I've just included it for your reference. And then our final bill, House Bill 1137, the Bring Back Main Street Act, as initially introduced, only applied to counties with populations greater than 150,000 residents, and it's dealing mostly with mixed-use development, so imagine the ice cream shop on the ground level with whatever residential purpose located above. As it moved through the legislature, it became a study bill. And who knows what the study could come back and say. Maybe it says that we don't want to limit it to counties with populations greater than 150,000. So that is an issue to follow up with. And with that, we will open it up to any additional questions that you all have.
Gentlemen?
Just so everybody understands, can you explain the difference between early and late vesting?
Yes, thank you for the question. So when you're submitting a permit application, the date that the permit is considered substantially complete is very important, because after that date, any new rules and regulations adopted after the approval will not be enforceable against the approved project. Currently, after a project is submitted and considered complete, you have until the time that a shovel is put in the ground to make amendments to that plan.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
But a conceptual site plan is not considered substantially complete, correct?
Okay, so this is relating particularly to housing development projects, and I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure about
Yeah.
that. I can't follow.
Perhaps
up.
doesn't have a
Mr.
traffic
Brinkley can
study.
answer that question, I can tell.
I was just letting them have a crack at it. So our understanding of this bill, and this is one of them I think I've mentioned to y'all a couple of times before, and of all the bills that I gave y'all, I think back in February, this is the only one that passed, and it was probably the least bad. Not saying it's good, but it's the least bad. You would still, it wouldn't be a concept. You would have to have final site plan approval, and that's when it would vest, as opposed to shovel in the ground construction work being done is what we are now. This basically, assuming the governor signs it, because I don't know that it's actually been signed yet, but assuming the governor signs it, for residential, it would become pretty much as soon as you have your approvals through site plan and everything, you would be potentially vested at that point in time. There was discussion, because I did listen to this bill when it was being discussed in the committee, about this applying to all projects, not just residential. So I do suspect there may be an opportunity this will come back in the future. Maryland is actually rare in it being a late vesting state. Most states are not late vesting.
Thank you for the assist.
Of course.
One other point I just want to make is you'll notice on the memo where they put the governor hasn't signed. In Maryland, the governor has 30 days after sine die, which was last Tuesday, to sign the bill, or else it dies.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions, comments? Thank you so much. We appreciate your help tonight.
Okay. And so now we're going to go to 11B, which is adequate public facilities for schools report, and Tamara has an update on that.
Good evening, gentlemen. So before you have the adequate public facilities report. The Planning Commission's policies for administering subdivisions under the adequate public facilities for school capacity, adopted on July 19th, 2026, requires planning and zoning to prepare school adequacy reports twice a year. That would be April 1st and November 1st, and this is the April 1st, 2026 report. 2 Calvert County public schools are over capacity, meaning they exceed 100% of the county's APF rated capacity. Those schools are Mount Harmony Elementary at 101.9% and Northern Middle School at 104.3%. These numbers are very similar to what we saw back in November of 2025, when Mount Harmony Elementary was at 101.6% and Northern Middle was at 104.7%. So at this point, no residential development has been affected by the overcapacity of these schools. So, do you have any questions? Or? Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we go to line item 11C, which is site plan and subdivision list. You received those in your information packets. Do you have any questions?
Gentlemen?
No.
All set? Thank you.
And then now that leads us to 12, public comment. Planning commissioners will accommodate public comment in person, by telephone, or virtually. Speakers, whether in person or participating by telephone or virtually, will be limited to 2 minutes as individuals or 5 minutes if the designated representative is of a group or organization. Individuals can also call in advance. You can call in at 1-872-216-2953, and the meeting ID is 299-248-548-9644. And we also have the opportunity to participate online. All right. Please state your name.
Patrick Flaherty, Leslie, Commissioner candidate, 1st District. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Mr. Manning, you really threw me a curveball here. Who has a by right to have a data center on their property? To my knowledge, anyone who has a by right must petition for that change in zoning to have a by right. Anyway, something we'd like to know. Commissioner Gadway, you're very right on how what you're saying. The process we got here has been completely vulgar and completely a brick wall with no transparency. I would recommend and ask this commission to define what a warehouse is and what a warehouse is not, and then go back and completely delete all data center language from the zoning ordinance completely. Recommend that to the board. Well, I'm sorry, let me back up. Recommend that to the Board of County Commissioners that all data center language be completely deleted. And that way we can have a clean reset. So when the data center language would be added later, at least we can have all the studies done, environmental studies, wetland studies, traffic studies, noise studies, and everything prior to the re-addition of the data center language back into the ordinance. That would be my wish that this commission would do so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Sherry Verdon, and I'm speaking on behalf of the residential water sewer consumers in the Marley Run subdivision. Okay. Good evening. I want to start by tying into the discussion that just took place regarding high-density housing and planned unit developments. How are those type of approvals that we just looked at being evaluated alongside large-scale uses like data centers when considering total demand on the water and sewer system? And how does that cumulative demand factor into the infrastructure that ratepayers are being asked to fund? I understand that the fiscal year 27 staff recommended budget will be voted on and adopted by the commissioners within the first 2 weeks of June 2026, and that the solid waste fund and the water sewer enterprise fund show significant increases that will directly affect the ratepayers. I am trying to understand how those funding decisions relate to what is in front of planning and zoning, particularly as it relates to data center proposals and infrastructure in Solomons. We have been told that the developer will pay for the infrastructure necessary to connect to the system. If that is the case, then what exactly is the developer's capital connection fee? What amount are they paying? How does that compare to what ratepayers were previously told had not been collected from developers and instead had to be recovered from the residential users in 2023? Back in fiscal year 24, we were told that 220 residents out of roughly 5,500 customers were being charged retroactively for breaks that were being given to big developers. Does any of that sound familiar? Now it appears that all water sewer consumers may be carrying a much larger burden. Why is that? What are the specific projects being funded? Have they been bid, and when? What were the original costs versus the current costs? I would also like clarification on rates. Have the rates discussed in fiscal year 24 increased again since our September 2023 meeting? If so, by how much and for what specific obligations? At various times, the public has been told not to use too much of the system, and that our usage funds the system, and then that we don't have enough water, but then that we do have enough water, and that the system was being strained, but also that Solomons was operating at less than half of its capacity at the time. Please clarify how those statements fit together in the context of the current planning decisions and proposed uses. I also have questions about reclaimed water. If treated water that was previously used for spray or drip irrigation or groundwater recharge is now being considered for private development use, how is the value of that publicly funded resource being accounted for, and who's paying for it? Who's paying us for it? It has been said in these discussions that we don't know what we don't know. right? We just said that tonight. But that is exactly why the public is asking for clarity before decisions are finalized. Because we walk in here today, you guys make your opinion, and then we talk. Shouldn't you hear us and then make these decisions? Because that's how I thought this was supposed to work. And also, as part of that clarity, I would ask, what are the disclosure requirements for county officials and staff involved in these decisions, and how are potential conflicts of interest identified and addressed in relation to large-scale projects like this? It appears that the legal and policy framework for these projects was developed before March 2025, when the public became broadly aware of the issue. Because of that, I'm asking for one clear, unified timeline from January 1st, 2022 through today, showing how infrastructure planning, funding decisions, zoning actions, economic development efforts all connect. Right now, these pieces are being presented separately across departments, and that is what is creating confusion for our public. Did anybody ask what the EDUs were going to be charged for this development coming up in Prince Frederick tonight? I asked that to myself because I know they're hooking up to my system that I just paid to have the capacity upgraded for the next 6 years, and then paid again with another rate increase, and then paid again. And now it's going to be voted in fiscal year 27, about 4 weeks before we find out about any of this. I don't think that's fair. I'd like you to consider that you now have this nice new building where you're all close and you can all talk to each other. A lot easier than you could before when you were running back and forth from the courthouse to the old big blue building that was falling apart. I remember I was here those days. And I worked for developers and businessmen in this county that had integrity at that time. And they taught me what that was. And now I'm asking you to please show me the same, that still exists here in our county. Thank you for your time. We need that clarity. We need that timeline. And I respectfully ask this comment be entered to the public record. Thank you, gentlemen. Now
Thank you, ma'am.
my kids.
Carl Elwine, representing the residents of Camp Kenoi. I want to speak more on the sound, and thanks for addressing the issues and bringing it down to 45 and suggestions. I do want to bring up just more on that. My wife and I did our own fact finding. We went up to Manassas. That's Loudoun County. We picked 3 residential areas. We went to 3 of them. We picked Amazon specifically, and you think it's hard to find one, right? Half of them are Amazon. We picked them because they're going to be, the proposal was, publicly made. You have to know, though, I'd like you to go deeper into it, and this is the country, and the country sounds a whole lot different, we found out, than the suburb and the busy, noisy area in Loudoun County. There's no such thing as a country. That is not the country out there. And your methods, all right, so today I'm going to play what the country sounds like. This is 35 feet from an industrial area. Forest and farming was changed to an industrial area behind my backyard. That's at Camp Kenoi Road. All right, that's enough of that.
Never.
And this isn't doctored. No, this is just, all right, now this is at a residence or a apartment complex, and it's in the backyard of a complex in Manassas. You can hear birds. That's 55 decibels. That's ambient. That's baseline. And that was, the first one you heard was 35 decibels, 34 decibels, ambient baseline. You heard in the background a data center. That's not that loud, but I think it is. If you're going from the country to a suburb, it's hideous. And we live in the country. And thank you for the clock, because I have to go to a more important topic. I seriously believe that it was improper to rezone the 780 acres Constellation owns in that forest and farming, and it was done improperly, even though it passed the lawyers. And the reason being, I should be able to make the 2 minutes. The reason being is I have the evidence and my opinion, and I think there's weight to this. Planning and Zoning, June 2023, I-2 is a more appropriate zoning category for uses like nuclear power plants, LNG facilities, and the proposed zoning is limited to properties where those uses currently exist. June 2023, currently exists is what it was, and not the forest and farming area. And this is the comprehensive plan, but at some point, okay, 2024 is when it became a bigger area, June 2024. And let me go to the point. We believe it wasn't because of planning and zoning or the commissioners. We believe it was because one property owner, powerful property owner, asked for that to be added. I'm getting a bit animated, but this is the truth. We believe that that was the case. We would like that it's unanimous down the Camp Canoy Road because that property was addressed in the November Planning and Zoning Commission. That's when it was addressed, and it was called the Camp Canoy property. It was addressed as 726 acres, Camp Canoy Road. It was forest and farming. Now it's going to be industrial too. I think that was because of Constellation asking for it. So the process is when you want your properties rezoned, it doesn't go through a comprehensive rezoning. They snuck it in, and that made it highly irregular. So what do I want from this? What is Camp Canoy residents? And what is, I don't know, a reasonable person who is a neighbor to that property? They would request that it be looked at again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Megan Farringer, and I'm speaking for Save Lusby Incorporated. Hello, Planning Commissioners. It's been a while since you've seen my face. I first want to acknowledge the first session that you had last week with the environmental commissioners. I think that I can attest for most of Calvert, and specifically Lusby, for thanking you for opening up that conversation and allowing all of us to be a part of that conversation. I am one to give flowers where flowers are due, so please accept that those are my flowers that I give to you for that meeting last week. As you know, Calvert, and specifically Lusby, have been in a long-standing battle with concerns with overdevelopment rushing down Route 4 to our town. We continue to speak about concerns about that rapid development, like housing being squished into places very quickly. And now we're looking at data centers and how the infrastructure, environmental impacts, health concerns are now looming. Don't you find it a bit interesting that there's been talks of an apartment complex back in March of 2024, ironically around the same time that there was alleged conversations happening with a specific data center around March 2024? Calvert and Lusby are showing up because we are concerned. We want involvement with the decisions to change the face of our county and what those long-term impacts are going to be. Thinking about how these large projects like apartments and high-density housing, data centers, how they impact school enrollment. How does it affect the fragile ecosystems that we tote about in our tourism? How does it affect our farmers and our watermen who rely on those ecosystems to stay intact? How does this buildup trickle down Route 4 to that wonderful, infamous disaster that we like to call the Thomas Johnson Bridge? For what? For another promise for a park that we'll eventually maybe get until somebody else comes to try and buy that property? Or my new favorite thing is a promise of eventually funding for turf fields, which we know the one county and the one town that's going to be the last one to get those updates is the one that's footing the bill with all the different infrastructure and different things that are happening down there. You guys don't have an easy job. You're the first line of defense for Calvert when these projects come through with their permits for approval. You're caught between big developer family names, big tech, and doing some favor granting for some people that you might know against your neighbor who's tired of seeing clear-cut properties going through. You are picked for your position by people who are doing quiet talks in the back room and signing NDAs. The county has lost trust in its politics. As I said at the Board of County Commissioner meeting, the data centers, the overdevelopment of high-density housing, these are nonpartisan issues. Calvert County Republicans, Democrats, and Independents are all on the same page with this. They are begging for our local government to slow down this rapid growth and to focus on what the county has right now to protect, instead of a quick fix to make a quick buck for tax revenue fixes that we're already seeing is not bringing in and bearing fruit nationwide. Personally, I have no family yet. You guys got the opportunity to raise your family with memories of a beautiful county with waterways and going on trips on the water and the cliffs and being able to go and hear mourning doves cooing on a Saturday morning for a soccer or a baseball game. If we keep doing this irresponsible growth, you're robbing my future children of that. And that's not fair to me, as I am vested in this county. It's not fair to the future families of Calvert either. Save Lusby, Inc. stands with Calvert and with any citizens in Calvert promoting responsible growth and collaboration to keep Calvert County that beautiful pearl of the Bay. So join us, work with us, protect us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's David Hill. I live up in Huntingtown, and I'm speaking on my own behalf this evening. I appreciate the considerable amount of interest and due diligence the Planning Commission has been giving the data center issue lately. I still think a moratorium is appropriate, but as you all know, that's old news by now. Based on what I heard at the recent Joint Planning Commission and the Environmental Commission meeting, I realized the approval process will allow for a requirement for various studies, such as environmental, electricity, water, noise, you name it. But unless I missed something, I think the text amendment process is silent on that whole topic. And I think given the interest, the public interest on data centers, I'd also use the term outrage against data centers, I recommend that you somehow codify the requirement for such studies now and include the requirements in the whole text amendment process before any approvals move forward. Otherwise, I think the risk is too high, and I feel data centers will somehow sneak through. We all talked about grandfathering a little while ago, but I suddenly started thinking somehow things are going to sneak through the grandfathering process unless you put some sort of study process in place that everybody can get the full bit of information. So I think otherwise I fear data centers will somehow sneak through, like I said, and despite the strong public sentiment against them. As a quick aside, I can't imagine why you would want to cram another subdivision on Main Street. Commissioner Gadway, I liked your comments on that. I think that deserves a lot of second looks, but talking about growth in Calvert County, another subdivision on Main Street does not seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. I wanted to add that in there. But thank you for allowing me to make a few comments, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Lily Sheeline, Port Republic. I just want to make a couple of comments with regard to the noise study that you guys have talked about, and I really appreciate the focus that you're putting into it. There are obviously other studies, and it was talked about with the Environmental Commission last week. I mean, we need to understand the heat island impact on the adjoining forests and all sorts of things, the impact on canopy, temperature, humidity, everything in the ground and the canopy, under the canopy. But just since you were talking about the noise, I just want to mention a couple of things. When the LNG facility was in the process, part of their requirement was to do a noise study. And this was something that Dominion itself was in charge of. It was not an independent study. And there were a lot of questions about it because it had very few points, and they were very specific points from which they did the studies of the sound. So I'm just going to really, I hope you guys will stress, number one, the independence of any such study, and two, it should be a variety of points, and it should be of locations, and it needs to take topography into account. So you need to get a real expert in there who can study that. And the second part of that is that, of course, this is really critical for the human community. I could not live. I personally would have to leave if I was living next to that kind of sound, and that's just the sound that we hear. But please remember that the impacts on wildlife are critical, and not, it's not just your deer. and Bambi. You know, I mean, it's every form of wildlife, the insects, the reptiles and amphibians, the birds. They need to be able to hear, but it's also going to cause a lot of stress. So please just ensure that whatever study you do is thorough and is rigorous and is independent. And I would extend that same request for any other studies that are done that would come before you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here we are again. My name is Jeff Dixon. I live on Cove Point Road, Busby, Maryland. And I have been impacted by Dominion noise. I mean, I live a mile away from Dominion, and I still hear the Dominion noise. Everybody talks about the noise. Yeah, I hear it. They built a 60-foot concrete wall. I should not be hearing nothing. I should not be hearing nothing. I am being impacted, and so are my neighbors. Just imagine if you live right across the street from Dominion, you would be pissed. You would be pissed. That is a part of the problem. Zoning has allowed these industrial businesses to build right across the street from neighborhoods that have been established for years. That is totally unacceptable. Also, just in case you don't know what a data center sounds like, there are data center complaints coming from Loudoun County. And I showed the video before, and I'll show it again. So here we go. Hopefully I have good enough time. Here it goes.
Imagine what it would be like if you had a helicopter just hovering over your neighborhood all day and night. It's kind of what it sounds like at a data center in the Ashburn area. Residents started to notice the constant humming over the weekend. Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Julie Carey found the trouble spot and then tried to find out why this data center is so noisy.
You can't miss the loud drone driving along Loudoun County Parkway near Waxpool Road. Even rolling up the window doesn't drown it out. And the closer you get to this data center, the noise grows louder, especially on the Loudoun County Parkway side. We measured the sound using an app and hit 90 decibels. The level.
See, that's what I'm talking about. They can hit the decibels at 90 decibels. That's unacceptable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Claire Hill, and I'm from Huntingtown. I'd first like to say thank you to each of you as individuals for listening, paying attention to the citizens who have been coming out and speaking to you. At this point, we're all aware that we feel unheard by the county commissioners themselves, and you're the last line of defense for us to feel heard as citizens. And we really appreciate what each of you are doing. It's painful that we have to come to the county planning and zoning to be heard by our county commissioners. We ask you to continue to think about the citizens and the overall community that are really desperate to be heard. None of you are sleeping up there while someone is speaking. None of you is hiding your meetings at 10 a.m. We're asking you to help us again. Please consider reaching out and going back to the study that was done almost 15 years ago by previous county commissioners. What would be best served for input or income for Calvert County residents? And that was for us to become Napa Valley versus Silicon Valley. We paid thousands for that study done. Yet I have yet to see any planning and zoning or any county commissioners implement any good parts of that huge, very, very expensive study that was done 15 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sylvia Batang, speaking for myself, Port Republic. Thank you, and second that motion from Claire. To start with, I think we should remove DPCs altogether from I-2 zoning. Failing that, Calvert needs a moratorium so that we can form a thorough understanding of the impact of bringing in DPCs. The Environmental Commission said that they can do this impact assessment based on the information that we have now if a moratorium is given. Without a moratorium and removal of DPCs from Zone I-2, then only careful regulation taking into account multiple factors can mitigate the adverse impacts. Compliance with federal and state laws, meeting the strictest modern standards with a plan to upgrade and update promptly when the strict standards become even more strict. Quarterly reporting required for all releases of carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, forever chemicals, heavy metals, etc., into air, soil, and water, with measurement of full range of sound from infra, low, and high frequency at the DPC board boundaries, open to review by all citizens. Failure to meet accepted regulations should be punishable by real fines, representing a relevant percentage of DPC revenue, so they are sufficient deterrence. Agree with decommissioning plan. It should be based on anticipated costs of demolition, but also the cost of remediation of the site, restoration to prior environmental condition, including wetland recovery and restoration of animal habitat, reforestation and remediation. The owner should provide a bond or escrow, as you suggested in your comments today. Permitting the DPC is a poor trade-off for the quality of the environment and the peace where we live. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Dawn McNellis. I live in St. Leonard on the Creek. I'm speaking for myself. It's no secret what's happening across the country with data centers. There are multiple, every single community that is faced with a data center is fighting it. I really appreciate you guys asking the correct questions. This is going to be the future that we are passing on to our kids. Nobody asked the deer, the pollinators, the soil, or the migrating birds. Nobody got a vote. Nobody said, hey, what about if we put these data centers in? You can go up to Loudoun County, you can go all the way down to the south to Mississippi, to Texas, over to New Mexico. It's happening everywhere. After a facility begins operation, land surface temperatures in the surrounding area raise by an average of 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Worst case, nearby temperatures climb to 16.4 degrees Fahrenheit. 16 degrees Fahrenheit increase in temperature, okay? The warming doesn't stop at the fence line either. The noise doesn't stop at the fence line either. Noise nor warming cares about your fence or your burr you want to put up or the trees. It go ups and overs and through. The warming doesn't stop at the fence line. It radiates outward up to 6.2 miles, affecting the surrounding environment. The study was done by the University of Cambridge and led by Andrea Morcioni of the Earth Observation Group. The research calls it the data heat island effect, and they say it is real consistent and happening everywhere these facilities exist. A single hyperscale data center, the kind that is required to run AI models, can consume anywhere from 100 to 300 megawatts of electricity. That energy, like all energy, does not vanish. Instead, it becomes heat. The servers generate it, the cooling systems push it outside, and the backup generators add more. All of the land that is surrounding the environment day after day, year after year. The temperature increases on that scale alters soil chemistry. They disrupt plant growth, they disrupt the wildlife. Do you want wildlife or do you want data centers and dead zones? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Commissioners. Kathy Decker from Lusby, Maryland. Last night, I submitted a proposed text amendment establishing a 1-mile student safety zone. I asked for it to be read into the minutes tonight, but I haven't heard that. Probably too late. So I brought it with me today in hopes that that can be put into the minutes. I am requesting that the student safety zone be incorporated into the final language sent to the Board of Commissioners. In your public documents for this meeting, comment 6 states that the county is selling BGE Park to AWS. This property shares the boundary with Southern Middle School. At that time, the county's official data center page states there's no NDAs. Yet tonight's agenda includes written comments naming AWS and discussing the sale of the park. So for clarity, is there a signed agreement with Amazon? If not, why is the potential sale of the land being discussed in these terms? On April 2nd, the Environmental Commission stated that a study was necessary to protect the headwaters at St. Leonard Creek. If the environment warrants that level of protection, then our children deserve the same consideration. A 400 setback may be appropriate for a warehouse, but it's not sufficient for an industrial data center campus with diesel generators and high voltage infrastructure. A 1-mile school safety zone is a reasonable and precautionary standard when a school is directly adjacent to a proposed site. I would like these questions answered for the record. Since a commissioner acknowledged that the proximity to the school could create an issue, why are we not pausing until that study is clearly defined? Why was the Environmental Commission's recommendation not followed? Which one of you will support this motion to adopt the safety zone to protect our children and prove that our children are not for sale? I request this motion to be included in the formal packet forwarded to the Board of Commissioners as part of the public record.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have somebody, if there's no one else in the audience, we do have somebody online. We have Joseph Cormier online. If you want to unmute, you can go ahead and speak.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joe Cormier, and I'm from Owings, Maryland. I'll be speaking on behalf of myself tonight. I just want to take a quick side detour here. If Mr. Mattingly or Ms. Lucas would like to explain how the county's attorney's office is understaffed, and yet we're paying $144,000 to Perry and Jacobson for nothing produced because they won't tell us what they're doing. To tonight's comments, at the Planning Commission regular meeting in 18 March 2026, Mr. Brinkley stated that the text amendments had been shared with developers for feedback before the presentation. The comments were that AWS has ancillary buildings and house generators, which are smaller and typically tier 2 generators, while the ones that support servers are tier 4. All non-server related generators would impose an economically burdensome cost to Amazon on the project. A comparative evaluation was conducted for both critical and server-related generators and house generators, analyzing indirect and direct costs relative to the quantity of emissions controlled by tons per year. The analysis demonstrates that house generators would incur a 320% higher per ton emissions controlled compared to critical server-related generators. This substantial cost differential becomes increasingly pronounced as the generator output decreases, further supporting the economic infeasibility of the project. This is in relation to standalone power generation and all stationary diesel generators serving the data center. They added in data center server rooms, including emergency standby generators, shall be certified to meet US EPA Tier 4 final emission standards. The fine folks at AWS want to have their lower quality generators on site for anything not directly plugged into the server room. Sounds like a slippery slope. As we talk about the noise and the pollution, the aquifers do not care about your berms. The bay does not care about your tree buffers. We cannot rush into this, and we should not be held to the time to market for Amazon and Meta and X and whoever. We need to defend our county. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We have no one else online. We have one more comment from the audience. Please.
Thank you. Hello, Shanna Goddessart, speaking for myself as a Prince Frederick resident. I would like to give a little bit of data on data centers, since everyone seems to be a little bit lacking on what is going on with them currently. So just in March of this year, with Amazon data centers in Oregon, they have had to pay a $20.5 million settlement due to contaminating groundwater with nitrates from concentrated runoff. Nitrate polluted groundwater, so unsafe it could not be consumed. The Hillsborough, Oregon county that this is happening in allowed the data centers to consume 50% of their water. Now they have introduced a bill, House Bill 3419, that is going to give the state more control over private wells and groundwater usage. It's going to limit how much water private citizens can pump from their private wells because of new regulations and fees. Nitrate contaminated water is one of the country's highest and fastest rising cancer causing contaminants. It is increasingly linked to incredibly poor health outcomes. These aren't just normal cancers. We're talking about the rare types where once you get it, that's it. There's no fixing you. Now, I want to go back to how you're going to do this heavy industrial area around 5 public schools. 5 public schools. What are we thinking here? Are you seriously going to do this to our children? Let me read your vision statement in case you've forgotten. Calvert County will be a safe and thriving community that balances economic growth with rural living, invests in every generation, and provides opportunities and quality of life for all residents. Is that what we're doing here? Because it doesn't feel like it to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? Gentlemen, could I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you so much.